Okay, welcome back to the Consulting Growth Podcast. I am really happy today to have Adrian Bettridge here, who is the managing partner of Baringa Partners. I've been following Baringa for a long time now, and they just don't seem to stop growing, which is remarkable, whether in recession or not. Just to give a bit of background on Adrian. Adrian is ex Accenture, jumped to Baringa in 2007, I think. Correct me if I get anything wrong, Adrian. And I believe at the time Baringa was relatively small, of 45, 47 people. And then Adrian was, after successes as the partner for financial services, was voted as managing partner of Baringa in 2014. Was it, Adrian?
That's right.
There we go, getting there. And Baringa is now, I would say a big player. It's 1,500 plus people. Still got, I have several of my old clients who have been, I won't mention them by name, but have been bought by Baringa and are very happy. And I also have several of my old students who are working for Baringa who are very happy. So, Adrian, you're clearly doing something right there.
Yeah, we've enjoyed a really good run. I mean, the firm's 22 years old and I've been there for 15 years, and we have a unique culture and collaborative kind of environment that people enjoy working with, and the clients enjoy working with us. So if you get those two things right,
yes,
the people love working there and the clients love the work you do for them, then it's a good recipe for starting and building a business.
Yes. I always say to my students, consultancies compete in two markets, really, don't they? It's not just the clients, it's also, and especially if you're not, Baringa has the brand name now, but when you were growing, presumably you didn't have the brand name to attract necessarily, students. So you had to offer something else, I guess. In fact, you don't take on a lot of students, do you? It's more senior people.
Yeah, we started with a very clear focus around people and culture. And so you're right to highlight that as one, a differentiator at the beginning, but it's remained a differentiator through the whole growth story of the firm. So we're a people first business. And that means, first of all, making sure that people love working at Barringa. When we were hiring in the early days, we said we're trying to build a business where this is the destination consulting place. So once you worked at Barringa, you won't want to work in any other consulting firm, because there is a bit of hopping around the industry that happens as people try and move their career forward or get a different kind of work-life balance. And we've tried to build a place where actually once you've worked at Baringa, you think, oh my goodness, if I'm going to work in consulting, Baringa is the place I'm going to do it.
Yes. And I mean, I as you know, having listened to previous podcasts, I don't usually blow smoke about to the CEOs, but there is something you're doing right there, because I don't know how much, we probably don't have time, but you'll have HR people who do the digging in terms of what are people saying once they've left, what recommendations are we getting, what social media is saying about us, and it's much more positive than any of the big firms. And one question I have is, how do you manage that when you are growing so fast? Because it's relatively it's not easy, but it's a lot simpler to have a good culture when you're small. But once you're growing, and especially when you're buying firms and they're coming from very different cultures with very different expectations, and some employees potentially wanted to work for a smaller firm, not a larger one. How have you managed to keep that going during growth?
Yeah, there's a couple of answers. Let me just underpin it with, first of all, there's an economic and commercial reason why we're good at people. Because if you think about attrition in any business, attrition is a killer. I mean, if you lose 25-30% of your people in a year, you have to hire 25-30% just to stand still. Yeah. That's the average in the consulting industry. The average in Baringa in the last 10 years has been 10% attrition.
Wow.
And so having a low attrition is commercially a great thing for a business. So that's a commercial angle on why we do it. But also, we've always set out to be a kind of a balanced, human, friendly, kind organization that almost offers a little bit of respite from some of the experiences that others have in larger firms, so they can come here and do their best work, feel empowered to do the type of work that they love doing in the way that they love doing it. And if you get that right, then you hire the right people, you create a great teamwork environment, not a hero environment, and then that culture snowballs. And so actually, I would say, Joe, that our culture and people proposition has got better as we've become bigger, not worse. So there is a kind of school of thought out there that small is beautiful and big is bad when it comes to consulting. I actually don't think that's true. I think what happens when some organizations get bigger, they introduce bureaucracy and rules and processes that stifle creativity and entrepreneurship, and you have to have approvals to go and bid for client work and things like that internally. One of our successes is not introducing any of those silly rules and actually keeping a very entrepreneurial, people-focused, high-trust environment for our people so that they can do their best work in the marketplace.
It's interesting, isn't it? And I'm guessing the fact that you're still a partnership means that some of those decisions are a little easier because you don't have the requirement of bureaucratic reporting at the top. Don't get me wrong, I realise you do have to report things, but once you've floated, as Elixir has found, it can be quite challenging because you've got to invest a huge amount in process and procedure and reporting and accountability.
Yeah, I mean, you'll be familiar with the work, David Maister's work on the professional services firm. I read that before I left Accenture and joined, and in there, and there are lots of different models, and they're all good and bad in their own different ways. So I'm not suggesting that there's a right or a wrong answer, but our belief as a business is that an LLP partnership is the best way to grow, build, and run a consulting firm from a client perspective and from an internal people and culture perspective. So you introduced me with my career at Accenture. Well, actually, I think I had two careers before. One was Anderson Consulting. And two was Accenture. Now, I know they're the same firm and they just changed their logo and their brand, but actually when they IPO'd and they went public, it was a different business, night and day. I could feel it within a quarter of being managed by the market. It felt entirely different in terms of bureaucracy, rules, reporting our sales figures, driving a strategy that the analysts were looking for from the firm, rather than what the partners wanted to do as a set of entrepreneurs and leaders. And so we've vowed to stay a partnership, be entrepreneurial, keep bureaucracy to a minimum, and only go after the work that we love doing, that we're passionate about, so that we can have the biggest impact with our clients.
Okay. There's a book that should have been written about the transformation from Arthur Andersen to Accenture, because the number of leaders that I have interviewed who left at that stage, who just thought, this isn't what I signed up for, started their own, clearly with a strong network and strong skills, and then have been very successful. Maybe if I have time someday. But that does raise the question of how you fund expansion, because if you IPO, you get a big pile of cash. You can go around, you can fund the bureaucratic overhead that's come in, and you can, focus on expansion. But if you don't have that, how has Barringa fund? Because it's not cheap to. I mean, I know you've grown organically, but also there's been a lot of mergers and acquisitions there.
Well, we haven't really had any acquisitions. So we've had about 10, 11 years ago, we had a merger with a small company called Redpoint. There were about 25, 28 people, and nearly all of those people are with us. All the three founding partners of that business are still in the business 11 years later. No cash changed hands. And we've had a merger with an organization just a year or so ago called Brightive. So our nearshore operation in Bulgaria, Sofia, and there's about 50 people when we merged with them, and now there's 100 people there, and they're all still in the business. So we have two mergers that weren't acquisitions, they were mergers, and everything else we've done has been organic. So that's sell great work, from the profits from that work, go hire leaders and
Yep.
talented individuals who have deep expertise that we can go then sell great work. So it's a bootstrapped, self-funded, organic growth story for 98% of the growth of the firm, from the 45 people when I joined to the 1,700 people in the business today.
Gosh, it's remarkable, isn't it? And there aren't. I'm trying to think of other firms that have. I mean, I know a lot of firms that have grown to sort of, 200, 300, 400 over the same period, but it's quite rare in the consulting space to come across a firm that's grown.
Yeah, I think that's another book in you there, Joe, because not only the Anderson Consulting to
Yes.
Accenture transition book, but I think there's something about the life cycle of a consulting business in that sort of sub 100 category. There's a certain feel to it. Then the 100 to 500 category, there's a certain thing that's going on, and lots of pressure in that 100 to 500 internally and externally to sell up. You've survived the entrepreneurial journey, cash in your chips, take the risk off the table, sell the firm to Accenture or somebody else. And so the pressure in that 100 to 500, or the sense of a quick win is immense. And we went through the same conversations as a partnership in that 100 to 500, but at that time set out our strategy for the next 10 years. We wrote a 10-year vision paper and decided that the best way to build and grow this firm is for it to remain independent. And we've all been at places like the big consulting firms. Most of our hires came from industry or those firms. And the thought of turning around to people and say, "Yeah, we had a great idea. What we're going to do is sell the business back to Accenture." I think I would have been lynched, Joe, if we'd ever put that on the table. And so because of the culture and the people proposition being so strong and so differentiated from those big firms, the thought of selling ourselves to one firm made us all feel slightly queasy. And so we stuck with our organic growth strategy and broke through the 500 person, broke through the 1,000 person numbers, and now feel like we just have great momentum in the market. You will have seen recently, we've just announced that we're probably the largest consulting firm in the world to be accredited as a B Corp status business.
Oh, I missed that, but congratulations. That's fantastic. Well done.
It's an incredible achievement for the business. We have such an amazing group of people who want to do good for the planet, for people, for the impact they're having on the local communities where we work and live. And so our B Corp status enshrines us in this club of B Corps where we're trying to have a positive impact on the planet, on people, as well as be a profitable, growing concern.
That's fantastic. That's yes, and that also adds to the value proposition for employees, but also clients. We talked about the value proposition for employees, but that's only half the story. You've got to be doing something right on the client side, and obviously competition in the consulting space has heated up over the last 20 years, but especially over the last 10 years with the strategy players moving into implementation, the big four doing everything. Now, I realize that being a partnership gives you an advantage because partnerships tend to have long-term investment in their firms, certainly more so, and tend to do more training than PLCs. But what sets Barringa aside from the larger players, perhaps, who kind of do everything?
I think that last phrase, that do everything, is why we've been successful, because we only do a few things really well, and we have deep industry and capability expertise where people have spent 15 years understanding the end-to-end mortgage process, or they spent 20 years understanding renewable energy and wind farms and the role that renewable energy needs to play in our just transition towards net zero. And so we have more geeks and experts per person in our business, I think, than any other business I've seen. And so we may not be the most fashionable, good looking or slick, but when it comes to subject matter expertise and content, we stand out. We have these deep spikes of expertise, more senior teams working for our clients, not a leverage model. And we just lack that generalist, we can do anything feel to our clients. They call us because they know we're experts in the areas that we do the consulting and advisory work in.
Okay, then I guess that prompts another question, which is, as you've grown, obviously you've expanded into different industries and different services, and obviously, you've got that depth of expertise where you are. What process do you go through in order to say, okay, so our next service line is going to be X, or our next industry is going to be Y? Now, is it quite a structured sort of long-term strategic thinking, or is it very much led by, there's a market opportunity here, there's huge growth, we need to be part of that, and we've got some expertise that can sort of transfer?
Yeah, we actually follow both of those. We actually do have a sort of 8 to 10 year vision of where we think the firm will be. We write a very thorough 3 to 5 year strategy paper on a rolling annual basis, and we have a 1 year plan. So that 8, 3, and 1 are the time horizons we think about leading and growing the business and making investments.
Yeah.
But we're also following an emergent strategy, which is what's emerging in the conversations we're having with the CEO, with the board, with a leadership team of a business that are trying to launch a new product or respond to challenger institutions that are trying to eat our clients' business. Tech that's coming up that we can see, and that's going to have a revolutionary impact on our clients. So the emergent strategy is as important as the structured, cognitive, long-term thinking strategy, and those two combined allow us to say very close to our clients, very close to the trends in the marketplace. Sometimes we're a fast follower, Joe, not a leader. We don't always want to be the first into something, but because we're nimble, because we're an LLP and a partnership with a single P&L, we have a leadership team that meets every week, and we're listening organization, a learning organization that stays very close to our clients and the market and our people, and then responds to things in an agile manner, which is one of the things we actually sell to our clients, is agile transformation. So we practice it on ourselves and put it into practice and make sure that we're on top of those emerging trends, and then build the capability and hire the experts in those emerging trends that we know are going to be relevant to our client. And we do that by looking at the things that are tangential to the things that we already do. And I'll give you a good example of a growth node. So we're working in energy and financial services, the two primary industries. Lots of our energy work saw us advising governments on their energy policy and their energy strategy. Lots of our financial services work saw us working with the regulator of financial services firms. So it wasn't too much of a step to say, actually, we should build a government business, because we've already got relationships in government when we're advising them on the energy policy and regulations to do with financial services and banking. So we set out to find a leadership team that could help us build a government practice. And
when you, I'm trying to get because I guess this is for my students, the partnership model is different to the traditional organization, in that I don't know if you were certainly voted as managing partner, I guess, and you're amongst your peers there, whereas in a more traditional PLC, you're going to have the boss who has complete power. They're appointed by the shareholders, and they control everything else. So is there a tension in decision making there? So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, if it's something that I've read about with smaller firms, is that if there is communal decision making, you've got this balance in a partnership between getting people involved in big decisions, but also actually being effective and fast with decision making. Is that a tension anymore, and how do you overcome it?
Yeah, it's definitely a tension. It's something that we definitely haven't perfected. So it's like you've just looked into our organization and seen some of the challenges that we face as a growing business. We've got partners that own the business and run the business and want the autonomy to make decisions, but we have a firm that needs to prioritize some investments and some decisions, which might go against an individual partner's personal preference
Yeah.
for a strategy or an investment. So we have this interesting dynamic where we vote on stuff as a partnership. So that allows us to make decisions as a collective body. We collaborate around the big decisions and then we'll have a vote. But we also devolve decision making to groups. So those closest to an area, and say, if you want to invest in building out an asset management consulting service in your financial service industry, you guys can go for it. And so we devolve as much as possible to partners and partner teams. We have a leadership team that have some delegated accountability and authority to make decisions for the firm, but we also come together as a full partnership team and thrash things out together, a fierce debate amongst friends, and then vote on something to make a decision. So yeah, we've got to get the balance right between that autonomy and that collective collaborative decision making, and that's difficult at times, but I guess that's partly my role as the managing partner, is to facilitate that partnership in good governance, making good decisions and getting most things right most of the time.
Sure. Yeah. Yes. Well, I mean, the facts show that you're getting, this right insofar as it's possible to get, everything right, which is impossible. There's obviously something solid going there. And how about the future? Because if you continue to grow at the pace that you've grown for the last 15 years, well, you'd be the biggest consultancy in the world. But I guess sorry, I'm stumbling over my words here. The competitive market is a competitive market. You've got new incumbents all the time. You've got incumbents, you've got new players, you've got people moving into the space. Is the plan over the next few years, and obviously we don't want any secrets here, but any confidential information, but is the plan to continue to grow? Is the plan to sort of stabilize? So what's the vision like for the next few years?
I think that's a great question, and I think
it was terribly phrased.
It was long in coming, but it's a great question. I think there's something at Joe about if you could peek into the visioning work that's actually going on. So we're doing our vision today for 2030. We actually don't talk about growth very much.
Okay.
Which is really interesting.
Yeah, it is.
From the outside, people see the success we've had, and because the mantra in most firms is all about numbers and growth. Ours is all about, well, what's the context in the world going to be? And what do our people want to do? What do we find most interesting? And where do we think we have a competitive edge that we could go and build something that we'd be super excited about? So we see growth as just something that happens at the end of a very long process. And we try and fall in love with the process of consulting, of our client intimacy and relationships, and doing amazing work in delighting our clients, in hiring the best people we can and training them, developing, supporting them, their whole lives being supported by the firm, not just the 8 hours they're supposed to be at work. So we put a lot of effort into the inputs of our business, and then the outcomes, they kind of take care of themselves. So if we grow 5%, 15% or 25%, we don't care. We just want to be thriving and successful in two measures. So we have two measures that we measure our success on. One is the net promoter score from our people. Are we delighting our people? And the net promoter score for our clients. Are we delighting our client? That's it. If we're delighting our people and we're delighting our clients, then we're a success, and growth will be whatever it will be.
That you're not the first successful leader or head of a successful consultancy that has phrased it in that way, that growth metrics aren't or shouldn't be the driver and the target. If you're doing the jobs right, if you're keeping your people happy and you're doing great work for your client, then growth is an outcome of that. It's not something that you pursue.
And the reason why I kind of reference Anderson Consulting vis-a-vis Accenture, even though the same organization, I saw a big shift in the emphasis on numbers when it became Accenture and they IPO'd. And we were having calls that say, this quarter's about top line growth. We need to hit X million of this. I've seen other firms who just outline their strategies. We want to be $1 billion business in this market by this date. And I've got to look at those things and I think, well, if you have that as your target, which is fair enough for some other organizations, but if you have that as your target, it makes you bend yourself out of shape to hit the target.
Yeah.
Whereas our targets are all the input measures.
That's great.
How happy are our people? Which areas do we want to invest in this year? Which country leadership teams need supporting and growing and nurturing? What capabilities do we want to build around our data analytics and AI team that help us build solutions and services for our clients, not just consulting, time and materials? So we're making all input decisions, not outcome, that sometimes bend leaders and teams out of shape. And then the real reason is because when you hit that $1 billion size or whatever it is, it feels a bit vacuous. You get there and you're a bit like, well, what do we do now? I know, let's make it 2 billion.
Yes.
So as soon as you get there, they just move the goalpost. Whereas if you have a purpose in the business that transcends any targets and time dates, then all of a sudden you're doing it because you love it, and you're building it because that's what makes your teams and your clients happy and excited. Then I think you're building an enduring model that just lasts forever, and it's about stewardship for your people and great impact with your clients, and then the growth's just whatever it's going to be.
I think that's such an important insight, and I think it's not just the consulting sector that could learn from that. I'm certainly thinking about a lot of the universities that I've done work with, and they'll say we want to be in the top 5 universities in the UK or Europe or the world. And you think, well, that's not, that's an output of doing great work. You want to focus on doing the great work, and then that might come. But if you're driven by that, and you're also more likely to disappoint everyone, because it's almost random whether you achieve that or not.
I completely agree.
And I asked my students, so I was chatting to my students about, I've got a group of students, 250 that go out and do consulting work with non-profits in Wales. And I was chatting to them about this interview, and I asked them if there was anything that they would like to ask you. And the first was about the partnership system. So although I believe I did a lecture on this, but they're interested in how the partnership system works, because most of them have been taught off the back of, PLCs, Apple and, all the rest of it. And I tried to explain this in our lectures a few weeks ago, but coming from the horse's mouth, it might be more, they might actually listen to it a bit more. So how does the partnership system work?
Well, look, our partnership system's set up so we have a ratio of partners to our consulting team of about 1 to 9.
That's great. I didn't know it was that low. That's fantastic.
So it's a really intimate partnership where our partners in our partnership, and the thing about partnerships, before I answer for Barringa, we should just say that all partnerships are different. And so I'll answer it from a Barringa perspective. But we have a 1 to 9 ratio. So for every partner, there's 9 team members. That means that we don't have to go and sell, huge deals all the time to keep hungry mouths fed. It means that our teams get to work side by side with a partner, writing the proposal, delivering the pitch, working on the project, doing the modeling together. And so our partners aren't partners. None of them have an office. They don't sit in the office in an ivory tower. They're actually traveling around in taxis and buses and trains, getting out there and doing their client work with our team. We believe that working with the partners and the directors and the senior managers, of which we have much more in our organization than a leveraged organization. So if you pick one of the big 4, they'll probably have a 1 to 60, 1 to 70 partner to team. So 1 to 9, 1 to 10 for us means that you're learning from each other. It's about collaborating and teamwork, and that partnership isn't very far from the work at any moment of the time in any day. And so we keep it very flat hierarchically so that we, the partnership team, and those who are coming through the organization, one, know they can make partner. So we have a very accessible partnership. So making partner in our organization is it's a step up for sure, but it's not a cliff edge that you can just think, oh, I'm never going to make it. We have an accessible partnership, a collaborative partnership, and a partnership that actually rolls up their sleeves and works with the client, which is why we all got into this business. None of us got into consulting to sit in an office and push pens and papers around and make decisions. We got into this business because we love solving challenging problems for our clients. And so that's what all our partners do.
And how many partners do you have now?
So today we have 121 partners today.
Gosh.
And so 121 partners and about 1,700 people in the business. We'll grow 10, 20% this year, and that will just kind of go in line with each other.
Sure. And do people buy into the partnership? In most partnerships with larger firms, they buy in, and then that's paid back on the profits over a period of time.
No, there's no buy-in to the Baringa partnership model. It's an earn-in model. So when you become a partner, you're a true equity partner, and you earn equity in the business through your career as a partner.
Okay, great. And the second one, in fact, this was prompted by me, but the students were interested as well. Students are hearing a huge amount about 100% utilization rates, leverage ratios of, as you say, 1 to 60. And even in the strategy firms, we're still talking, it's not what it used to be 20 years ago. But you have managed, and I'm talking about Adrian here rather than Baringa, it seems that I listened to your wonderful podcast with on climbing consulting with one of your ex-employees, actually, Nick Sinnott. And it seems that you've got hobbies outside, and you've always had hobbies outside. You've got four sons, I believe.
Yes.
And it seems that you have managed to, and you've still got your hair, of which I'm insanely jealous. And it seems that you've managed to be very successful as a leader and the company, or leading the company, but without, obviously it's been hard work, but you've had time for other things. I'm guessing there's two questions here. Number one is, how on earth have you done that? And number two, would it still be possible if you were starting again now, do you think?
I'll answer the second one first, because I actually think it's more possible going forward than it ever has been in the past. So I actually think we're humanizing consulting with digital tools and tech and hybrid working, the chance for a balance of life and the ability to, I am today working from home this Thursday, middle of the week, rather than being on a client site or in the office. So our hybrid working model, the tools and the technology enable us, I think, going forward. And our clients' expectations, the thing that we learned through the pandemic, was not could we do it, but would our clients accept it? Now our clients prefer it. They know we need to be in their office, round a whiteboard, brainstorming on the kickoff meeting for a project, but they know we can be as productive at home on Thursday and Friday this week, and then see them back in the office on Monday and Tuesday. So that hybrid working, I think, will enable consultants to have a life, a career, family, and hobbies, and juggle them. So I think that's the possibility going forward is even better than the past, because in the past, we'll all have to admit, Joe, that growing up in consulting, there is a degree of presenteeism.
Oh, definitely.
Get to the client office before they do, and leave after they've left, to just prove that you're adding value. I think those days have been diluted, that preference in our clients' minds, because we know that consultants aren't work shy. They work too hard sometimes. And so I think clients see the value they're getting irrespective of where they're located, but knowing that when they need them in the office, they will be there. So it's not an opt out and do consulting from home. I don't think that model's ever going to be the mainstay consulting model, but it's just the hybrid nature of consulting will mean that we can have better balance going forward. And then personally, I think you missed out all the school plays, football matches, and things that I've missed.
Okay.
So I don't want to put a veneer of sunshine on your question, because I've sacrificed, and all of us who are successful in whichever career we take make choices that means we miss family moments, birthday parties sometimes, get stuck at airports when we should have been at home because we were trying to get there to put our kids to bed, and we've missed those things. So the sacrifices are real. And despite having hobbies and family interests and loving what I do as a problem solver for clients, the juggling is constant. I don't really believe in having a balance of life. I believe in actually becoming a good juggler. And sometimes sacrificing things at home because this client thing is more important. Sometimes saying no to that client thing today because I need to get home and see my kids or take my wife out on a date. So I think the juggling is constant. And what we need to help the next generation of consultants do, because of the hybrid working and the juggling, is develop the empowered decision making to prioritize personal commitments, because work, because of all the tools I've just explained, could consume your life. Because it can eke in at any moment on your phone as you're traveling off to the football match on a Saturday. You get a ping from a client like, oh no, should I go home and work? No, just because you've seen the email doesn't mean you have to drop everything and do something about it. So it's that decision making, personal discipline around prioritizing family moments, health and happiness for yourself, as well as knowing when to dial it up for a client. And that's the skill that we need to work hard on, supporting each other in this industry at being good at. Otherwise you can get consumed by it.
Adrian, thank you so much. It's we've taken up a lot of your time, and you obviously have a company to run, children to look after, and various sporting activities to do. But it's been a really interesting and useful podcast, and the best of luck for the next however many years at Barringa.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to chat with you, and by extension to your students. And if they have any follow-up questions for me, I'm always open to answering them. If anything I can do to help you or them, just let me know.
That's really kind of you. Thank you, Adrian.